Pleasant day or evening or afternoon to you. This is Myrene Agustin Magabo from the University of Phoenix, United States of America. And I am presenting to you my proposed theory that says instruction equals communication that results in learning. Before I proceed with my presentation, I just would like to let you know that this brief paper presentation is part of the continuing effort, my continuing effort to promote and strengthen this theory, which has been continuously being presented in various global conferences. I also would like to thank and acknowledge the great learning and guidance in many of my research undertakings as member of the Center for Educational and Instructional Technology, or CEITR, of the University of Phoenix, led by Dr. Mansouri Kibrichki and Dr. Stella Smith. Huge thanks to my dissertation advisor, Dr. Flor Alexander, and critics. On top, Dr. Lex Librero, and my peers and colleagues, my professors from the University of the Philippines. I humbly thank them for their devotion and inspirational support to this theory development journey. This theory started from a schema in mind, mental symbol in mind that says instruction, the teaching learning process, is exactly the same as communication, and I schematize it as instruction equals communication. After 2 decades of schematizing, theorizing, rationalizing, and proving that instruction, the teaching and learning process, is exactly the same as the communication process, an enhanced general theory and model of instructional communication is hereby proposed. It is instruction equals communication that results in learning. So for my schema, the process of instruction is a highly purposeful communication process, and I schematize it as instruction equals communication. Then add to the theoretical thought or concept by Scott and Wales, wherein they say that communication is a process wherein it results in learning. Therefore, if instruction equals communication, then it results in learning. As mentioned, I took 2 decades of going through the process, and I use a reiterative process, a highly qualitative methodology to theory development. I use Peter Senge, a ladder of inference, wherein first I select the data, I interpret and analyze the data, I validate the data, and repeat the process again, going down from up by validating mental models, clarifying mental models, and selecting major output from the reflective research process. So this is a reiterative process of theory development. If further explored, this can be a way, one way to develop a theory without going through quantitative study, just purely qualitative study or process. So from the schema, instruction equals communication, I have gone through iterative steps of validating and expanding the concept or the mental model, thus resulting in an enhanced theory and model of instructional communication. And thus, from instruction equals communication, this is now instruction is communication that results in learning. This theory debunks the prevailing notion of communication as merely part of the instructional process. This notion can be seen in major instructional communication literature, such as from the works of the famous and my highly respected authors, Motet, Richmond, and McCroskey. The revised version of the 2000 Handbook Instructional Communication 2018 is being introduced as a compilation of theory and research on the role and impacts of communication in learning environments, on topics in social identity, technology, and civility and dissent. The prevailing thoughts that communication is merely part of instruction can be seen in Scott Mayer's 28,000 introduction of scholarly works in Oxford bibliographies. It states that instructional communication is defined as a discipline that centers on the role that communication plays in the teaching, learning process, or instruction. The model that you're looking at on the screen depicts the process of teaching and learning or instruction in its entirety as a communication process. For the actors, we have the educators and the learners. We have the professors, the lecturers, and the learners exchanging messages, sending forward messages, and then feeding forward reactions or feedback, and the process goes on. It could either be through technology, it could be technology mediated communication, or it could be face-to-face, but yet it proves, the model shows us that instruction cannot occur outside of communication, wherein it results in learning. So therefore, instruction equals communication that results in learning. Depicted differently, yet this model also shows us that instruction occurs within a highly purposeful communication process. Teaching and learning cannot occur outside of communication. Therefore, communication does not merely play a role in the instructional process. Rather, communication is the process in which the teaching and learning or instruction occurs. Therefore, we can say that instruction equals communication that results in learning. In this detailed model of instruction as communication, we can see that the design of instruction is part of the instructional phase or process. So first, in instruction, we define the learning objectives, which is exactly done when communicating or in communication. We want to identify our goals and our objectives, and then based on the goals and objectives, we create the message or we develop the content of our communication of instruction. And then we also create the communication activities or the learning activities. And also within this detailed model is the depiction of the feed forward and feedback process of communication. Also, we can see that learning and communication theories operate intertwinedly within the process of instruction. Instruction, therefore, is a highly purposeful communication that results in learning. Now, with my concluding thoughts. This proposed theory elucidates the instructional communication process and provides an enhanced definition, theory, and model of instructional communication. This theory debunks the prevailing notion that communication is merely an important part of instruction. The theory addresses concern on the field of instructional communication as struggling with important practical and conceptual issues. The theory underscores the intertwined and unified existence of the theories of learning and communication theories within the instructional communication process. It offers a model that highlights the use of technology in the process of instruction or teaching and learning. It is a highly productive and purposeful communication through conversation. That's how instruction or teaching and learning occurs. You further before I show you my references that we cannot not communicate, as coined by the Austrian communication expert Paul Václavic. Every behavior is a form of communication, and so is instruction or teaching and learning. It is a form of communication. And these are the list of my references.